Well, it's Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, and you know what that means. It's time for the 76 Capital Leadership Series. And we have a great show, and this is the beginning of what we're calling the NBA week at 76 Capital's Leadership Series. We'll be starting off tonight with Mason Plumlee, who is an NBA player with the Denver Nuggets, as well as Tom Eggleston, his business partner and venture capitalist. So it's going to be a really exciting thing. And just to get started, just to give everyone a little bit of background, is when people start to, come on to the stream at this point, as that everyone knows, we're live on Facebook, we're live on LinkedIn, we're live on YouTube, and we're live on Twitter. So Mason Plumlee, who is Mason Plumlee? Well, Mason Plumlee is a professional basketball player, as I said earlier. He's a 6'11" center for the Denver Nuggets of the NBA. And as a freshman at Duke, back in 2009, 2010, they won the national championship. And then after his, and by the way, played at Duke with his two brothers, which we'll talk about as well, which is just, I can't even imagine how amazing that must have been. And then after that, he was drafted in the first round by the Brooklyn Nets and has played with the Brooklyn Nets, the Portland Trail Blazers, and now the Denver Nuggets, and is also a member of the USA basketball team, and is involved in a lot of things that are kind of bringing forward the NBA season, hopefully in the next month or two. Mason grew up in Indiana and went to school in North Carolina, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Tom is the managing director of the venture capital fund that Mason works with as well. We're going to talk about what they do, from investing in seed and early stage companies, in med tech and real estate tech and MarTech and sports, and just all the things that they do. Really fascinating to hear not only the types of investments that they're making, but also the things that Tom has done as a business leader, CEO, taken companies public, played basketball at Dartmouth, went to UVA Law School. And we're just going to talk a lot of hoops, tonight. So I'm looking forward to this show tonight. And as we always do when we kick off at our 76 Capital Leadership Series, one of the things I always want to share, and we want to talk about the news and sort of what's happened. But many of you know what we do at 76 Capital. And our business at 76 Capital is to invest in passionate and smart and nice entrepreneurs that want to do really big things in the sports industry, whether that's in the esports industry, the sports betting world, as well as just general sports tech opportunities. So this week at 70, when we talk about what's happened, we could follow a lot of the news that we have on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter. Follow us all across that, all the different networks. We put out a lot of information. But this week, one of the cool things that happened is the MLS announced their return to play. They are going to return on July 8th, and those games are going to be held in Orlando. And if the NBA is there as well, that's going to be wild to see all the things that are going on down there in Orlando at the same time. Also this week, it's been amazing to watch what's happening with the sports betting stocks. Penn National Gaming partnered with Barstool Sports back right during the Super Bowl, and Penn National stock soared. And then COVID came around and it dropped like a rock. But now it's back, and it's surging back, and it's in the 30s, and it's incredible to see what's happening there. And then as part of all this as well, DraftKings goes public. DraftKings is also now, a tremendously, their stock's up 82% from the time it went public. So really exciting things happening in the world of sports betting and the stock market. From an esports perspective, we have our esports 76 Capital Showcase, which is going to be on June 18th. We have picked the companies that will be presenting, and we'll be announcing them over the next week or so. And you'll start to see some of the companies. And we're really excited to showcase not only companies that we've invested in 76 Capital, but just in general, companies in the esports ecosystem. And I think you'll really enjoy the show that we do on June 18th. So follow our information for all the details there. And then, you can watch all of our shows, our leadership series that we do every Sunday night and Wednesday night at 7 p.m. But you can also watch them anytime you want on YouTube. They're all there. We've had some great guests. We've had some incredible, powerful women in sports. We've had, it's really been incredible to see some of the people that we've been able to have on the show. And tonight, we're super excited about the show because as we bring on the guest for today's show, Mason Plumley, and welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Wayne.
Absolutely, it's great to have you. And it's funny. I have my son over here. He's 16, and I went to the University of Maryland, and he's this Maryland fan, and he's like, "What are you doing? Come on, Dad. You got this Duke guy coming on." I said, "But let me tell you something. This guy's a special guy, and I really want you to hear, spend some time and listen to listen to the show tonight." So again, welcome and excited to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
So you're used to doing these types of shows. You're doing your own right now on Facebook. It's really been great to watch. And one of the things that I think is really interesting in a lot of the shows that we do is really get an opportunity for people to share information about who they are. So I'd love for you to tell your story from your perspective from the beginning. I know that there's a great story about your parents and then your brothers, and I'd love to hear some of your what it was like growing up in the Plumley household.
Yeah. So long story short, we're all from Indiana. Both my parents played college basketball. Indiana in basketball is like Texas in football. It's just the game of choice. Everybody plays at recess and otherwise. So I fell in love with the game early. I have an older brother, Miles, who played, and I always wanted to tag along and do what he was doing. So I played early. I tried a lot of different sports growing up, but basketball was always the constant. So we were fortunate to play for a really good high school team. We went to a boarding school in North Carolina called Christ School. And then after that, we all went to Duke. So we got to spend I have a little brother too, who you see there, Marshall. But in high school, we got 1 year together. In college, we all got 1 year together. And those were some of my favorite years of playing basketball. So it was a very cherished experience and something that I'm really grateful for. And then, since then, as you mentioned in the introduction, I've played for 3 NBA teams now. Been really fortunate to play with some great players, some Hall of Famers, some really good coaches along the way too. So the NBA has been a dream. I've loved every minute of it. And, I'm really excited about our return to action come July. And that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. I love this picture that's on the screen now of you and Commissioner Stern, someone that was not only just a friend of ours at 76 Capital, but I just enjoyed the times, spending so much, got an opportunity to spend so much time with him because we invested in some things together and got an opportunity to interview him. It was one of the last, potentially even the last interview that he did at our Sports Innovation Conference back in November of last year. So sad, missed the man so much. But it was so interesting about this picture. When I was thinking about tonight's show, you got selected by the Nets in Brooklyn, and the draft was in Brooklyn. That must have been a really cool experience.
It was amazing. And, it was always what a lot of people won't know from the picture. You get invited to the green room if you're projected lottery pick. I was not, but it was a dream to walk across the stage. So I went anyway. And a lot of guys do that. And I tell all the young guys, everybody should do that because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So I was drafted at 22, like you said, to Brooklyn. They'd only been in the city for 1 year, and I think it might have been the first year they hosted the draft. But it was a special moment and something I'll always remember.
That's awesome. And then, while you were in Brooklyn, you played with some superstars at the time.
Yeah, we had a really good team. For me, it's funny, on that draft night, I remember our GM's interview, and he was like, we're championship or bust, right? So he's like, Mason will spend the year in the G League. I actually didn't spend any time in the G League, which was good for me. But our team, we were on the cover of SI. For reference, we had our starting lineup was Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Brooke Lopez, who was, an all-star just a couple years before. And then off the bench, you had Jason Terry, Andre Kirilenko, Andre Blatch, Sean Livingston. It was a rock star team. J Kid was our coach. For a basketball junkie like I am, it couldn't have been a more fun team to be a rookie on. but it just did not work. and we turned it on like January, February, and we ended up being the 6th seed. We won one round in the playoffs, which, based on how we started this season, was really good. But in terms of expectations, that was Prokhorov, who was the owner at the time, pushing all his chips to the center of the table and saying, we are winning a championship. And, I think in building teams, when you try to do it all in 1 year, it doesn't always work out so well. But at the time, it was highest payroll in league history, not because of my rookie scale contract. And it was a fun thing to be a part of, but obviously didn't work out as we had hoped.
Well, something that did work out, it sounds like, was your time at Duke prior to this, right? I mean, before we certainly have had a great career, and we'll talk more about that. But going back to Duke, what was it like playing for Coach K? Again, a little bit. You had your brothers, there at certain periods of time, and just the overall experience playing at Duke and Cameron Indoor Stadium, and that. What's that like?
It was just such a privilege to me. Growing up, I was a fan of different college teams, but growing up in Indiana, you're in Big Ten country. So I go to a Purdue game. I'd even go to a Notre Dame game. But ACC basketball was just always on ESPN. So for me to be able to join Coach and what he was doing down there at Duke was just a privilege and something I'll always remember. I spent 4 years there, played with a lot of good players. John Shire, Kyrie Irving were some of the guys, Rodney Hood, that I just felt fortunate to be teammates with.
Well, it's really great to have you on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And as everyone knows, on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights at 7 p.m., we come live with leaders in the sports industry. And tonight, not only do we have a leader in the sports business side of things with Mason and what he's doing, we'll get to that part of what he's doing, but he's also a current NBA player with the Denver Nuggets. And really excited to have you. And we're live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, as well as on YouTube tonight. And so Mason, I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about was also your experience when you played with the Portland Trailblazers.
Yep.
You came into the league the same year as C.J. McCollum. And I know that, and then the next year, my buddy Pat Connaughton comes over there. And I mean, those guys, they're just such good guys. What was it like being on a team with some of those guys, as well as, Dame and the rest of the guys?
It was a really fun year. So my 3rd year in the league was when, I just got there. Pat had just gotten there. CJ was an unknown, and people, I forget the numbers, but they projected us to win, 25, 30 games. And we ended up being the 6th seed. We far and away overachieved. And then we played the Clippers in the first round. We beat them and lost to the ultimate champion and the Warriors. But, going into the season, like the only known entity was Dame Lillard. And then we had Gerald Henderson, who was a really good player for the Bobcats for a long time, came over to us. And other than that, like, it was just a bunch of unknowns. And sometimes, like, those are the most rewarding seasons because, we're looking around at each other like, hey, we can really help each other out here if we win some games. So let's do it together. And, both those guys were great teammates. And I really enjoyed that year.
Well, and then you went and you got picked up by the Nuggets, right? And what's it like? You keep going. It's your 3rd city now.
Yep.
Is it fun? Is it tough? Is it what's it like?
So it's more of a challenge to move in season. A lot of my trade had to do with the salary cap spike in 2016 in that free agent class, and then that money not being available in 2017. So when I was traded from Brooklyn to Portland, it was in the off season, and I was like, okay, I'll be there in August. Had a great introductory press conference, met the GM, the team, whatever. When you get traded in season, it's a whole different ball game. Like I went in, the GM wanted to meet with me, which he never really wants to meet with you. It's more casual conversation, but you go in, you find out you've been traded, then you get the call from the other team from Denver, and they're like, hey, can you be here tonight? And I was like, well, I can be, like, can I pack a bag, or like, how, there's 2.5 months left of the season. We're we're in the running for the playoff spot, and it's a little more helter skelter when it happens in season. But yeah, it's fun to have had both experiences.
Have you had an opportunity to spend any time with the owners of any of the teams?
Yeah. So our owner here in Denver is great, Stan and Josh Kroenke. Stan was just in Lifton today as we were in there working out. So he makes Denver his home, and we see Josh quite a bit as well. And then Paul Allen, he loved his Blazers. He was all about the Blazers. He's just a little more quiet, personality wise. And Prokhorov, my man was great, but he was an absentee owner. He probably came to like 4 or 5 games the whole 2 years I was there. But I'll say this: he spared no expense on the team, so we appreciated that as players.
I heard a similar thing about Paul Allen, about how he kind of, Steve Kerr shared with me, kind of there's this, Paul Allen does his kind of state of the state with the team, gets to know everybody, and then you really don't see a lot of them, but he takes care of he took care of everybody. Is that similar?
You may not hear from him, but he was incredibly tuned in. Like, people told me, like, when there were cameras in the facility, he knew who was working out. He knew if you're jacking around at night in his facility or not. Like, so I've even heard stories where he was at the Super Bowl because of the Seahawks, and he was calling the head coach or the GM saying, "Hey, I think we should get this guy," or I really want to see this next season. So he was all about the Blazers.
So, kind of switching gears a little bit. I love some of these pictures. James back on the controls. Appreciate all the pictures you're able to bring to tonight. But from going from playing on the court, dunking, turning to the VC world, how did that happen?
It was really random. I had somebody living in my building when I was playing for the Nets. This kid was dealing aloe water out of the trunk of his car, and just curiosity got to me. I said, "Hey, can I try some?" Tried it. It was a good product. He was like, "Come learn more about the company." And he was at a co-working space in Williamsburg, which now that co-working space has turned out a lot of really neat companies. There was the founder of Greats Brand, a shoe company was starting out there at the time, and there were some others. But once I went to the co-working space and realized that there are just so many people out there with new ideas to improve on product or service, people with big vision, ambition, and aspirations, I was just attracted to the culture. So that was my introduction. Since then, it's gone a lot of different directions, but I'll always appreciate the ambition of the entrepreneur, and it's been fun to follow different founders and their stories, and as you talked about earlier, that's really what's led to my founder interview series.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the founder series. I mean, did you, is that something that you run yourself, or do you have a team that helps you do that? I mean, you have an unbelievable list of people that you've been reaching out to.
Yeah, so this is a good question. When we started out, I had probably 30 companies that I had any kind of interaction with over the last couple of years, and I was like, okay, so we know we could feature 10 or 15 of these. But then once we started doing it, the inflow was more than we could handle. I actually have a really good friend, Doug Young, who's from Philly as well. Lower Merion, played basketball with Kobe. He runs the series, and he runs a company called Athletes Inc. that does PR for athletes. So I linked up with him when I was working out in Philly one summer, and he pitched the idea to me, and I was like, "This is awesome. Let's try it. It doesn't have to be great right away, but let's see where it goes." And he's done a really good job with that series.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I mean, it's been educational. It's been informative. It's been something that I've really enjoyed hearing. And we're just excited to have you here tonight on our 76 Capital Leadership Series that we do each Wednesday and Sunday nights at 7 p.m. And at this point in the show, Mason, I think it'd be great to bring in your partner and sort of hear some even more about the venture side of things, and And so let's bring Tom into the show here. Tom, welcome to the 76 Capital Leadership Series.
Wayne, Mason, thank you. Glad to join.
Well, I with talking to you guys, it feels like maybe I'm intruding on like a family affair here, but I'm excited to be part of it, at least for the next 20 minutes or so. So thanks for joining us.
Privilege. You're right. The families have known each other for many decades, and it is a joy to now be involved with technology and Mason sports and all the things we do together.
That's really great. And Mason, you have your friend with you right there.
Yeah, we got dogs all over the place over here. It's Denver. We do dogs.
Well, Tom, I mean, I'd love to, similar how I, talked with Mason, I'd love to hear from you as well. Your about your family and background, and certainly the relationship between the Plumleys and your family and the basketball ties, I think, are really pretty amazing.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. So Kathy and I have 4 children. You see our youngest in the middle of the first row, Jim, who is in customer service and retail and a tremendous sports fan. Behind him is Jack in the pink, who played at Penn and then professionally in Europe for 6 years, and is actually the founder of Carmody's Capital, our VC. To the left in the blue is Thomas, who worked for a VC in Chicago for 3 years, then for Carmody's, and now is in his second year of law school at Indiana University. And in front of them is Annie, a Wake Forest graduate, who is launching her own business now in Lincoln Park, Chicago, called Play Today. And my wife, Kathy, in the foreground, who is a pediatrician. Our story is having the privilege of growing up with these 4 wonderful kids. They were all involved in sports. And so Jack and Tommy both went to Penn, Jack to play basketball, Tommy football. And I had graduated from law school, started practicing law in Indiana. And my very first client was Mason's grandfather. And it was a complicated matter, and it took us several months to resolve, and it worked out successfully. And in the process, met his dad, Perky, who was then a high school senior and quite a basketball player himself, and wanted to play in college. So got involved in supporting his recruiting effort, ended up playing in Tennessee, and then for several years after college. And then his mom, who was one of the great Purdue University basketball players of all time, men or women. And so we've really enjoyed then the chance to have our kids and the 3 boys and 1 girl Plumley story match up exactly with our kids. And we've enjoyed now seeing them all as adults and this venture opportunity.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you talk about your venture fund, Carmody's, and how did you? I read a little bit about this. How did you come up with the name, as well as what does the name mean, and why do you call it on that? Yeah.
The credit to the founder, Jack. He noted that Carmody's was the mentor to Plato and Socrates, and there actually are collected dialogues with him mentoring these 2 genius individuals. And so he said, Dad, if we can not only bring capital, but also bring strategic value to the ventures we invest in, then Carmody's really captures that notion. And so we have been proud to use that identifier ever since.
That's great. That's great. So, maybe talk a little bit about how the fund has come together. I mean, so you said Jack started it, and it's been around about 4 or 5 years now. Is that right?
Yeah, starting the summer of 2015, we began by interviewing 12 ventures. I'll quickly tell you the story of, at the end of our first round of interviews of companies we might invest in, I said to Jack, we were terrific. We completely nailed every one of those companies. We understand what they're doing. And he said, Dad, we are clueless. This is high risk, early stage seed investing. And what we should do is find a partner like 76 Capital that are real pros. And they could serve as a lead investor, do the due diligence that we could take advantage of learning from. They could take the board seat and really pair up together as co-investors. And Wayne, to your credit, we've had that relationship, and we're the beneficiary of the wisdom of your team and the tremendous quality of deals that you attract.
Well, we appreciate that, and I think that one of the things that I've also noticed, this is a great shot. Will you tell a little background about this one here, about this picture?
Well, the two fellows on the right are obviously 7'4" Ralph Sampson, and we were in UVA. I was in the law school and overlapped, and so we connected with your 76 Capital team at the NCAA last fall when he was speaking to seniors in college and helping them understand what the transition was going to be like. So a couple of UVA fellows there in the picture got back together after several years.
That's great. That's great. We've got Ralph's shoe that he re-released back here about a year or so ago, which was actually a really fascinating story, and it's one of the things that we really pride ourselves, at 76 Capital, is how we can not only work together with guys like Ralph and help them express and learn and get involved in the entrepreneurial world and the venture capital community. I mean, what was crazy is that Puma wanted to re-release his shoe, and he said to them, I want to do a Shark Tank like competition, and so they did that down in Houston at a WeWork. God Shamgod was also one of the sharks. It was a really fun thing. Chad Stender, one of my partners, did that. And they gave out sneakers to everyone who was there. People in WeWork were running in to try to get sneakers. I mean, it was just crazy. But I think it's one of those things that's just sort of shows. And I'd love to, Mason, for you to jump in on here on this. I mean, it talks about like how there's this incredible. Maybe it's a convergence or it's a bringing together of the entrepreneurial world, the sports world, the fact that there's just this opportunity to do really amazing things in sports and and look at kind of how tech and is coming into the world of sports in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about the attraction from the athlete side. I think for better or for worse, we understand the odds of getting to where we have. There are only 450 NBA players. There's only, so many NFL players. And, guys don't look at the odds and say, well, the success rate of a startup is whatever, 2% or whatever it is. And that could be good and bad. But I think that, that dreamer mentality or the ambition to achieve what others can't is what's attractive to athletes. And I think that's why you see so many guys getting into, some are entrepreneurial after the fact. I think it's really hard to, found your own company while you're playing. I mean, the sport is what pays you, right? So that's the first responsibility. So I think guys like to dip their toe into investing, especially in early stage startups. And then, after their career, look at it more seriously or see through some of their own business ideas.
Yeah, Tom, from your perspective, how has it been, working with Mason, as a partner in Charmides?
Well, remember, academic All-American while he was at Duke, and I love Greg Popovich's comment about Mason from last summer in USA Basketball when he called him the perfect teammate. And I would use the same phrase. He is a reservoir of ideas, suggestions. When we're in due diligence and we have an esoteric subject, he's the first phone call I'll make and say, Mason, do you know anybody who has machine learning knowledge with these specific attributes? And he'll have 2 or 3 names. So he's not only a source of deal flow, but he's creative and then has this incredible network for due diligence that really gets to the essence of a venture. So it's been a great relationship.
That's really great to hear. I mean, it's something that, as you said, Mason, I mean, it's something that it's hard to do when you're in season, right? It's hard to do when you're active because it really is your main thing is to stay in the league, get that next contract, keep working. And that's the most important thing. And that's one of the things that, we at 76 Capital talk to a lot of our athlete venture group guys that, this stuff will be here in
Right.
Right. There's no rush. Like, don't rush into this. But look, a lot of guys do it. A lot of guys love it, and it's exciting. I mean, is there? Last night, Mason, I did a different show. We had Ross Arroyo, who works with Mark Bartelstein, and he came on and was sharing with us, that what's like to he's been with Mark for 5 years in his agency, and said he's met you a couple times, not a lot. He's worked with some of the younger guys. They brought in a lot of Maryland guys. Ross is a Maryland kid. That's probably what. Okay. So like Lehman and Herder and those guys. But it's interesting. It was interesting to hear how Mark and his team work with their clients, and the sort of the family relationship. It seems like they seem to have. Is that something that you were looking for when you were with your, looking for an agent? And what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was an easier experience for me because my older brother went with Mark, and he had a great pre-draft experience, and then he had a great working relationship with them. So, when I came out of college, I really only interviewed two agencies, and to Ross and Mark and the Priority family, it's been one of the best decisions I've made. And then to touch on your point of a lot of guys being attracted to the space, I would just share that, like, to the other athletes listening, you have, if you want to do it, you have to have great partners. You have to have people that are in it every day and that you can really lean on, not only for sourcing, but diligencing and then actually acting on investments. And that's, with Tom, it's been an incredible benefit.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually really, really interesting to talk about, right? So you have, doing venture capital investments, doing startup investments, Tom, you don't just put your money in and, wait for a call for the big check, right? There's a lot more that goes into this business.
Maybe a story, Wayne, an example. Home court was an investment that Mason and I found very early. We attend annually the March MIT Sports Analytics Conference at Sloan, and they were pitching, came up afterwards. No one else walked up to them. They were 4 engineers with an idea, and to basically simplify it, the ability to capture in 3 dimensions shot accuracy, made or missed shots was the original concept. And in that space, everything was very hardware intensive. And so Mason and I saw the brilliance of what they created and steered them towards some other investors who were owners of NBA teams and felt that would help bring some credibility, although it's really designed as a youth application, and more recently featured at the launch of the Apple X phone on stage with a wonderful event, and then now have been partnered with the NBA. In fact, the NBA made a significant investment in the venture and have launched it globally as part of their sports initiative for youth. So you had to go all those years to MIT to find them, right? I mean, we didn't just stumble on them the first day we showed up, but it begins with a conviction that sports analytics remains a niche opportunity for really great ideas and great tech execution. And so that's been one of the areas we've pursued very aggressively. And frankly, thanks to your esports and what you've done around sportsbook and other areas of sport, we've very much benefited from the work of 76 Capital. So it's a teamwork approach, just like being on the court.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And going back to home court, I mean, I think it's really interesting because, similar to those baseballs and softballs that are behind me over here with one of our companies called Diamond Kinetics, it really seems, and then they've started their whole Play at Home series, working with USA Baseball and Easton and Major League Baseball and all the leagues down to the youth level of enabling people during this pandemic to play at home. And I know that's what's going on at home court as well. I'd love to hear, I've seen, Mason, I saw your one of your workout videos. I keep showing it to my son. I'm like, come on, Hunter, get out there. Like he plays but like I love it. Like so tell me what it's like to actually use the tech and how it works.
So, from an investment perspective, I think you have to want to be a user of whatever you're going to invest in, just fundamentally. When people bring you stuff and you're like, all right, I know you don't use it, but everybody else will, it's a little harder for me to wrap my head around. But so the tech, basically you set up your phone, the AI captures the court, the free throw line, the 3-point line, and then the camera is capturing so much analysis of everything from your speed, your shot arch. Tom, you could chime in, but there's so much functionality of the app. You can do shooting drills, you can do dribbling drills. They just launched a week ago. You can be doing dribbling drills and math at the same time. So for the kids who want to play basketball, but they aren't doing their homework, they pop up like 4 times 2, and then you have to touch 8, and the camera will recognize you reaching out to touch the number 8. So there's a lot of fun stuff with it, but it's really a strong team behind it. I think that's what really was attractive to Tom and myself, and they're doing some fun stuff over there.
That's really cool. And Tom, how did that work? During the time, we're in the middle of COVID, and how did the team come together and make that happen so they could really get this out to young people during this time?
Well, fortunately, it was part of the original concept that it would be a delivery at home and could be used in school and by teams, but fundamentally it was for a parent to tell their child to go take 300 free throws and to be able to know how many they really shot, how many they made and missed from the corners everywhere on the court, or as Mason said, a variety of dribbling and other drills were incorporated later that further reinforce the skill development. And so it's really an accountability tool. And you're right, it had just exploded now with the need for structured activity for kids at home, and their ability to do this in their driveway without needing to go to a park or go to school has really been a boom. Another example is a medical device company we founded called Interactive Metronome, where the training is delivered in a clinic. And now with COVID, there is an at-home version of it where clinicians can supervise 25 kids at a time through the delivery back through the data of their training sessions. And suddenly clinicians are seeing way more patients because of that at-home delivery. So it's true outside of sports as well. I think the ability to deliver high value added services at home is going to be one of the great takeaways of the last 3 months.
Absolutely. And also I'd love to hear from an overall perspective. You must see, like we do, lots and lots of deals. And what's sort of the process that you use at your firm to go through those opportunities, share them with your partners like Mason and the rest of your team, and sort of drill down to decide, how do you kind of make that decision as you're going to make an investment or not in a company?
Well, we make some conscious choices on where we can add top of funnel deals. So we're close to Techstars, for example. We are part of other accelerators. We participate in your events and others. So we're out at MIT every year looking for startups. Now that's become a 2-day component of their conference. So you really have to be purposeful within the verticals that you're interested in. And so we pick those and pursue them even globally to find deal flow, mainly through lead investors that we have relationships with. The Midwest is now growing as a source of really good deals. And so part of the exchange, to be honest, Wayne, is we will source deals for firms on the East and West Coast that will be developing here in the Midwest that they would otherwise miss if they will exchange the same opportunity for us. So within the VC network, as you well know, because you're the master of this, there's a reciprocal exchange of the best ideas. In fact, you recently put me onto one, and we just had the call with the inventor founder, and it's a deal we will invest in, guaranteed. And we would never have found it had you not made the introduction. So we have two analysts, Parker and Hank, who go through everything that comes in. We look at about 1,000 deals a year. And then from their review, we'll then get involved in more serious due diligence with the ones that are most interesting. And at that point, we then involve the advisors. So we would not take Mason's time until we're serious about the venture. And that's where he's this great due diligence resource for experts who can help us evaluate the merits of the company.
So Mason, do a lot of entrepreneurs reach out directly to you with ideas and opportunities for the firm, or how does that work?
They do. I think it's a combination of word of mouth and then the interview series that we referenced earlier, and that's why I encourage guys, athletes to get with really good partnership, because you're always going to be reactive with people reaching out to you, and you really need, like Tom said, those analysts and those kind of that first look analysis from people who see the 500,000 deals a year. And if you have that, then I learned early in my investing career that just because you're being introduced to a company, it doesn't mean that there aren't 5 or 6 more out there trying to do the same thing. So you get a lot of inflow, especially when people know you're interested in the early stage space. And that's just something that comes with the territory.
Is it something that you discuss with some of your teammates, or certain teammates of yours interested in this side of the world? I know, just from my relationship with CJ and Pat, and I know those guys love it. I mean, I actually met those guys originally at the Steph Curry, Andre Iguodala Players Technology Summit in San Francisco, and just was super impressed with them. Are there guys like that across the league that you talk this to about?
There definitely are. And my first year in the league, I realized how much some of my teammates had done, and that really interested me in the business side of things. And what was great for me coming into the league, my bets, they gave me their wins and they also gave me their losses. So they didn't just talk about everything that went well, which is easy to do, but they also said, like, look, I didn't handle this real estate deal right, or these guys were trying to build a hotel down in some island I had never visited, and I got took, or I was in a Ponzi scheme. Like, those stories were just as valuable as I bet on Zico coconut water and Coke Bottom. So I felt very fortunate to have those insights from older players in the league.
That's great. Now, being one of those older players and sort of veterans in the league, are you doing the same with some of the younger players that you get a chance to play with now?
For sure. I mean, there has to be a general interest. If they aren't, then I would never force anything on anybody, or I'm just an open book. That's what I tell my teammates. If you guys are interested, I'm happy to share. But I'm not going to bother you with anything, because it's, everybody has their hobbies. I have guys that are teammates that are into hunting, guys who just want to spend time with their family. Some guys like to travel. Everybody's different.
Well, it's exciting to hear, as you mentioned earlier on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, that you're back in Denver, and we're getting close, hopefully, for the beginning of the NBA season to start back up again. You guys are in the hunt. You're for the and it's pretty exciting to be in all of this. And so Tom, when Mason's playing, how does this work? I mean, when do you get a chance to talk business, or is it all basketball during the season?
No, we wouldn't know. No, it's not all basketball. I mean, a great Mason story. They're playing the Clippers the night before, and we're in San Francisco at a technology conference. The Nuggets team plane lands at the airport, and instead of going with his teammates, Mason comes to the conference and sits for 6 hours hearing all these companies pitch. And then we ended up going to watch him play against the Warriors that night. So when he describes this being a passion of his, he absolutely makes time. And so he'll pick up the phone or call me during the season, and we're in hot pursuit of great ideas all year round.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Now, was your first year with Denver, Mason? Was Jameer Nelson still there?
Yep.
He was. Okay, so you got some Philly when when he was there. And so Jameer tells me this story about how, when he was young and early in his career, very similar to what Tom you just described. He said, we would be on the road, and he said the guys and I, we would come down in the elevator. Grant Hill would be with us, and we would all go to the right and go out to dinner or whatever we were doing, and Grant would always go to the left. But he would meet up with us later, but we never knew where he was. But he was always good. And then he was like, then I found out later in my career, he was actually taking business meetings. He was doing the kind of stuff that you're doing. And he tells me, I wish I would have done some of that stuff.
It's funny. So Jameer won't care about me sharing this story, but we were talking about investing and some of the different decisions he had made. And he actually referenced Grant Hill. And he was like, yeah, Grant, I think it was like a multifamily housing deal down in Florida. And Jameer, his whole thing about investing, he's like, I'll trust guys. He's like, but when I write him the check, I'm like, look, I don't care how much you bring me back. Just don't lose my shit. And that was like his mandate as an investor. So I don't care if it's 8, 12, 20%, just don't lose so Jameer was great. I really liked playing with him.
Yeah. I mean, he's a true pro. I think in, through and through. And, it's amazing. You're having one of those careers as well, and certainly wish you a ton of luck through all that. And Tom, thinking about what you're doing at the fund now, what are some of the things that you see when you kind of look out over the next 3, 5, 10 years? What are some of the big trends that you're looking at, you're thinking about, and you and your team now?
In terms of the big picture trends, we're bullish about blockchain, particularly in the supply chain area, when we're all now supply chain experts because of PPB being sourced and how we find ventilators, and that's now a topic that we all talk about. But we've made quite a study there. Our core business is a real estate technology business called Renew Management, and we underwrite the value of single-family homes across the country. And so we take a lot of data, and I think that this area of big data is still largely unrealized, and the opportunity to build an analytical tool that takes a lot of data for decision-making purposes and makes good decisions for us, that we still review on a quality control basis. I think that's another huge trend that is happening. Certainly the AI that we've seen in home court, and we're pursuing some other AI investments, is going to inform us to be healthier, to make better choices. It's going to help us autonomously drive our vehicles for us. So I think blockchain, ML, and AI as big game changers are still in their very first or second inning of the impact that they will have. And so we look for undeveloped or highly fractured industries where this kind of innovation can be very disruptive and bring radical efficiency. And those are trends we follow closely.
Well, we hope we get an opportunity to do a lot of those things with you. Certainly the ones that all focus on using all that technology within the sports industry. I think that it all can be used, and it's something that also is being welcomed by team owners, by leagues, by just sports in general, all the way down to the youth level, to bring through the use of all this. And certainly your company, Home Court, is one of those that's doing that. So I think that's really great. What we do at the end of our 76 Capital Leadership Series, we do a couple quick questions, kind of rapid fire questions that I'd love to do, and love to get your thoughts on a couple of these different things. And I think, one of which is for both of you is, what are the so far, because we got a lot to do here, and we're going to hopefully do a lot of things together in the future. But so far, what's the biggest, most proudest moment of your career in business so far?
I've only been a part of one exit, so I'll let you go first.
I mean, to be honest, to mentor people that then become very successful. And there have been a number of them. So I wouldn't say it's a single deal or transaction or even exit, but it's to be able to follow along people that you've had some impact in guiding and to have a continuing role in their lives. To be honest, that's the most gratifying.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think when you're in the rooms with the people who are truly there's the business aspect of it, but that comes below like the mission of literally changing the world. I think when you're in those rooms, you almost pinch yourself and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. So that to me has been the most rewarding.
That's incredible you say that. I mean, we talk about at 76 Capital, our whole mission is to work with passionate, smart, and nice entrepreneurs that want to change the world, and that's what it's all about. I mean, it's like sitting with these entrepreneurs and they talk about how, you know, I want to go create this thing, and everyone tells me it's impossible. I can't. It'll never happen. And I always come back to them and say, you know what we do here at 76 Capital, we help you make the impossible possible. Mm-hmm. And that's like, and I, you know, it's so important, I think, to support and help, you know, and give confidence to the entrepreneurs. I mean, it's like anything else. Like if you don't have confidence, you walk out on the court, you'll be terrible, right? I mean, you have to have that confidence, and it's also one of the things we find as well as, you know, the kinds of entrepreneurs that we invest in. We love if they're athletes, right? Because one of the things about an athlete, as both of you know, it's that the same kind of, you know, passion and desire and persistence that it takes to be successful at the collegiate level, at the pro level, right? To stay in the NBA is the same kind of thing that you need to have to be successful in business, because you will get doors slammed on you. People will tell you no, people will tell you you're out of your mind, but you got to be able to keep moving forward. And that's something that it is such a huge thing to do and in support of the great entrepreneurs that are out there today. So another thing is I'd love to hear is like who's been your favorite, you know, person to compete against on the basketball court? Is there been somebody that, you know, both of you have played a lot? So
yeah, I mean, for me it was definitely Miles. We played together for so long, AAU, high school, college. When we finally played against each other in the NBA, it's not like we hadn't played against each other before, but then you bring an audience into the equation. It was just a different thing. So that was always my favorite.
My favorite was against my sons, Jack and Tommy, until they reached the ages of 14 and 12, and they started throwing alley-oop passes to Jack to dunk over me. And that was the end of the fun of basketball right there. So playing with my kids, most of all.
Yeah, it really is sad. I mean, my son Hunter, he kills me now. He was telling my brother the other day. He's like, I could have beat my dad 50-0, but I just gave him a few baskets. I was like, yeah, come on. Like, it's tough. It's tough getting old, right? You know, right? Who's growing up for both of you? Who were some of your favorite athletes? That people that you really admired that were athletes?
I played for Dave Gavitt at Dartmouth, and he was not an athlete. He was earlier, but as a coach, and so that was very impactful. And I remember seeing Julius Erving play when we went to UMass as a freshman team, and he was in the varsity game, and that was a breathtaking sight. I just never seen a game played like that. So I would say Dr. J for me, for the first time seeing him in person.
Yeah, I was Jordan era. He was killing our Pacers back in Indiana. So those were watching those games was really what got me hooked on the NBA.
Well, I have to ask you, so who was your favorite Pacer back then?
Man, to me, what made him so good is there wasn't everybody loved Reggie Miller, but you had Rick Smits, you had Antonio Davis, Dale Davis, you had Travis Best. Like they had some really good years there and some really good teams, but MJ always came to town and took care of business.
Yeah, it's funny that in the Last Dance, you see the makeup of that team, and you talked about the makeup of the Portland Trailblazers. And, actually, originally you talked about the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, that team was stacked, right? I mean, it was a similar kind of thing that one year you really thought that the Pacers were going to break through, and
then they fight the Pistons.
Exactly. So, last thing I'd love to leave you guys both with, and this may tie into. I know that you've it's been a tough last couple weeks, and whether it first and certainly months with COVID, and now with the unrest and the just the terrible racism and terrible things that are going on in the country today. I mean, are there, and I know that Mason, I've seen some of the posts. I saw a post that you put up from Anthony Tolliver and some of the things that he's involved with and you're involved with, and just I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's the future going to be like, and quite frankly, as we said, how can we make this world a better place together?
I mean, for me, Mason, sorry to jump in. I think if we could, as a country, reestablish the priority of health care for all, and whether it's Obamacare or another version of it, I think our ability to deliver medical services differently, more broadly, and not leave uninsured people is not an answer to racism, but is an answer to better health care, better life, better opportunities. And so for me, in addition to Black Lives Matter, of course, I would love to see us as a country kind of recommit to healthcare for all.
That's really strong.
To me, I think the energy, the passion, the education that's going on right now is very necessary. And I was on an interesting call with Coach K, brought all his former players together to talk about the issues that are going on. And Coach K, being old, as he would admit, he said, this has happened a couple times before in our country's history. And he's like, there has to be progress made afterwards. He's like, this is all for naught if there isn't change, if people don't continue to educate themselves, and all races support each other. And it can't just be, blacks supporting blacks, but white people, when we're in a room by ourselves, like how are we talking? How are we supporting? And I just think that, I think everything that's going on is very necessary, and I'm glad that it's happening. And I look forward to us as a country responding and taking the right steps forward, from the top down, from the government to the locals to, us in our day-to-day jobs.
Well, I think that's a really great way to end. And again, thank you, Mason and Tom, for joining us. And look, let's come together as a community, as a country, as a world, and let's make this place better. I mean, it's our responsibility to do that. We got to treat people the right way, and do the right thing. And in the meantime, look, and not in the meantime, I would say also, it's like one of the greatest things. And look, is to build companies and do good things together, and that's what we're so passionate about, and trying to help people achieve their dreams. So again, thank you so much for joining us on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. It's been a great conversation. I love to hear how long your families go back together, the things that you're doing together in the venture capital world, helping entrepreneurs, making things happen. And I'm excited to work together on some things in the future. And it's been great. So thank you so much. And as we wrap up right now, I wanted to just mention that as we continue with the 76 Capital Leadership Series on Sunday night, we'll have Roy Hibbert. We'll have NBA All-Star, and he's been coaching as well. Roy's going to talk about what he's done across his career, what he's doing from a business perspective, living in LA right now. Really excited to have Roy join us. And as you all know, you can follow our 76 Capital Leadership Series across all the social media networks, Thank you so much. Have a great night and be safe, everybody. Thanks again, Mason. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.